Hey y'all, it's so good to hang out with y'all again. So today we are going to be painting our white Christmas trees. So it's not a difficult painting, it's very soothing and relaxing. So let's just jump right in. I want to mix up some colors before we begin. I bought myself this blue-gray. I don't know if you can see that, but if you don't have it, it's literally just blue and gray. So the blue I'm going to use today is going to be the ultramarine blue. So if you have that, you can get that from anywhere. So just put some of that down on your palette. You don't need a lot. I just put a little bit. And then you're going to mix yourself some black and white, and we're going to go ahead and make our gray. We're going to have like 2 different shades of gray, okay? So I'm going to pull out my white because I don't want to put the black in my white. So I'm going to pull it off to the side like that, and then I have another plate down here. So I'm just going to take a little baby dollop of black, and I'm going to put that right inside the white, and I'm going to blend that up. Now, when I said 2 shades of gray, you see how this is nice and light? I want to darken this up a bit. So I'm going to take a dollop of this, pull it out to the side. And if you start running low, just add more white and more black and just try to balance it out again, and then do the same step, pull it out to the side. So then I'm going to take a bit more black. I want like a charcoal gray. So I'm going to add that in there. That looks good. Yeah, that looks real nice. Maybe just a touch more black, just a touch. So y'all see that? And that's what we're going to start with. All right, so we have our 2 grays. Now, for those of you that are going to mix your own blue and gray, just touch your blue. You don't have to clean your brush. Just touch it with the same brush. And then just pull it right off to the side. Now, you probably can't see that because my plate is blue. So what I'm going to do is pull it to the white. So I'm going to take some of that charcoal gray. I'm going to put it on my plate here. And then I'm going to touch the blue and blend that up. It looks cloudy. It's like some dark gray clouds. So you don't really see a whole lot of blue. It just changes the gray up just a little bit. So I'm going to take that gray, and I'm actually going to go to the other palette. But go ahead and take your blue gray that you paint, that you put on your palette or that you bought from the store. It doesn't matter as long as it's blue gray. And instead of black today, we're going to start off with this blue gray, and we're just going to outline very loosely around these lines. Now, when you get to this line down here, so you're just going to stay above it. Don't go in between, okay? We're going to leave the bottom half of the painting alone for now. So just keep on loosely going around it. There's no set way to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Now, once you get that on, you see how I'm just loosely moving it around the back? And I got a little bit on my finger there, so I'm just going to utilize that, add it to the canvas too. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and start adding white into this mixture. So I'm just going to start plopping. So once you isolate your background, like we just did, we're going to start adding white to it. So just plops of white around the outline that we just did, okay? So we're just focusing on the background right now. We're going to leave the center alone. So just plop that on there. Now, I'm going to be using a few different brushes today. So I just have this old bristle brush. I have 2 of them that I'm going to be using. This one's a 2-inch one, and then I think this one is like 1/2 inch. So I am going to start off with my smaller one, but it's just whatever rough, older brush that you have is going to be just fine, okay? So you don't want to wet it yet. Just leave it dry. I usually move it around just to loosen up my bristles a little bit on the palm of my hand. And then everywhere where I plop the white, I'm just going to move it around and just kind of blend it in with that blue. Just like that, like so. Ooh. And then I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to add a little black to it. Just take your little tip of your bristles, like just barely touch it, just like a little peck, just like a little kiss. And you're just going to work that black into the blue-gray area, okay? Now, you're going to see me come over the line a little bit. And you know, I'm going to go ahead and switch my brush again. And I'm going to go ahead and go for my 2-inch bristle brush. Now, if you don't have a bristle brush, just grab one of your older brushes. Just something you kind of disregarded because the bristles look funky. That's the brush we want to use. We want to use the funky brush today. So just kind of smudge those edges where you place the gray-blue outline. So we're just going to smudge all of that. And you see I'm not really going too low. I don't really want to go down to the bottom yet. So once you just roughly blend these colors together, what do we use? We used a touch of black, we used white, and we used the blue-gray. And we're just going to blend that around. Just like that. Y'all probably wondering where the paper towels are. Don't worry, they're coming. All right. So we're just going to leave that alone for now. And now we're going to go to our tree. So I did my homework, and these trees they're weeping white, is it spruce? Spruce. It's a spruce. It's a weeping white spruce, and they come down like your hair's falling down. So we're going to want to take our brush and extend the lines out like a nice jolly old Christmas tree, but we're going to have to control ourselves. And we're going to train our brush to come down when we make our strokes for this tree, okay? So I put all of the lines for your paintings in pencil, but don't feel confined to that. You want to break out of that and just find your rhythm. But the main thing to remember with these trees is a downward pull, okay? They go up real tall and they're real skinny. But as you come down, they do widen out, but it's still this downward little flow going on. So we're going to start off with just some black, like always. All right. So we're just going to start at the top, and you can go ahead and pull that line right into that gray-blue sky. And pull it on down. Now you'll notice I didn't dip my brush in the water. I want this to look a little rough, like a little bristly. I don't know. We're going to try and make it look very woodsy. So I don't want it to look too smooth. And you see the canvas and the panel is going to help us attain that effect. So we're going to pull that down. And we're going to leave it looking a little rough. That's the word. We want it to look a little rough. Now, we're going to go ahead. We just did one straight line down the center of the larger tree. Now, there's that little tiny tree in the back. Now, mine's real tiny, and I want it to be about that size. So I'm going to pull my line up ahead just a little bit and pull it down. So I'm going to make it longer. Just like so. So, and I'm using a round brush, y'all. I'm sorry. So, whatever round brush that you have, go ahead and use that. Now, if you only have flat brushes, it's fine too. Just turn it on an angle and just pull down straight, okay? It'll work the same. But for the trees, I am going to be using a flat and a round brush, all right? So, once you have your little rough looking straight line for both of the trees, I'm going to start going in, and I want to add a little bit of my, let's see, let's do some burnt umber. So that's going to be like that dark brown. It's going to be like, it's like a milk chocolate brown. That's all it is. So I'm going to go in. I'm not cleaning my round brush that has the black on it. And I'm going to start going over some of these lines, pulling out. Just pulling out. And as I get to the bottom, but remember, we're pulling out but down. So I'm going to pull it out. Pull it out to the other side. And it's not going to look like much yet. And that's totally fine. Because we don't want it to look like much yet. Alright. And see, as I get down to the bottom, I guess we're doing a little bit of dry painting today. Because we want those rough textures of paint smudging against the canvas. We don't want anything silky smooth yet. So, it's going to start flaring out a little bit like a lady's dress. We're going to work our way to the top. And we're going to leave this tree alone here, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and mix my yellow ochre. And I didn't clean my brush, so I'm just going to take that yellow ochre and I'm going to take some of that burnt umber. And I'm going to blend it nicely together. It should look like coffee with a little cream in it. That's the color you want to get. Now, if it's not accurate, that's totally fine because we're not going to see this. It's just going to add to the volume and the depth of the tree. So we're just going to add that, pull them downward, just like so. Now, the fun part. Take your flat brush, give it a good clean, because we're about to grab a whole lot of white. So now, from this point, everything we're doing is going to have white in it. So you're just going to mix. You're going to keep your round brush, and you're going to keep all of your dark colors on it, all right? We're probably not going to wash this brush much, but I want you to have one good brush for your whites. So I'm going to use my little flat, it's like a flat, almost oval looking brush. It's old, but it works for this tree. So I'm going in for my white, making a big splat, just plop it on in there. And then I'm just going to start working inside my tree. So it's going to start looking a little dirty. But we're going to keep doing that rhythm, that downward pull. There's no set lines we want to follow. We just want to do a downward pull. So all right. So I'm going to leave some areas with good bit of white, and then some areas I'm gonna blend away completely. But leave that there. Go back in with your round brush. Go ahead and touch some of that burnt umber and that yellow ochre. And go right on top of it and create those marks again for the downward pull. And we're just going to repeat this process until we start finding the tree. So we're just looking for the tree right now. So this is the part where you're just going to play around until you see your ideal white spruce, weeping white spruce Christmas tree. So every time you add a touch of burnt umber. I do have raw umber on the palette, but we don't need it. You can use it if you want to use it. It won't hurt anything. But we're going to do the burnt umber. You can interchange that with the black, just a touch of black. Don't go too heavy on the black. Like, make sure you wipe off the black once you put it on your brush. Just kind of twirl it. So you can interchange the black, the burnt umber, and the yellow ochre. And you can also use some of your blue-gray, okay? So I just touched my blue-gray and my black. And I'm going to go over that white. I'm going to keep my trunk visible if I can, just at the bottom, really. So now I got some of that blue going in there, but I want more of that burnt umber look. And you'll also need to have your burnt sienna ready. Now, if you don't have burnt sienna, what you can do is take whatever brown you have and add red to it. So y'all see how I just added all of my browns? Now I'm going to go right back over all of my gray areas. And I'm just going to splat that white on top of it. Like, I might twirl the brush a little bit, but I'm always going to focus on that downward pull. And you're probably like, this looks nothing like that. Well, it's not going to look like that just yet. We got to work at it. So let's just keep on piling on that white. And one brush we will need is a fan brush. We don't need it now, but just you can go ahead and get it ready. It's a nice fan brush. So now you can start adding a few strong lines. And what I mean by that is just visible white lines that look like the branches of the tree. But we're going to keep them going down. Now you won't see much of them because all of our paint is just wet and it's going to be a very thick tree. So you pull them down. So just keep pulling down on either side. Whatever you do to the left, do to the right. Then you're going to take your brush with your browns and your blacks and your gray blues, and you're just going to work inside of your white. So you're literally just pressing under and around some of the white spaces. You can't mess this up. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You just want to, and look at me plopping my white right, my black and my white. So I'm going to make me a gray. So you're just going to move your black and browns and blue grays around each other. So look, I'm put it here. So it's just a very sporadic thing. So you're just gonna like, oh, little accents here, and here, and here. I'm gonna go up here, maybe over there. But you see, what I'm always doing is pulling the tree down. And then as you get down to the bottom, you can start pulling it out some. It starts to fan out at the bottom. So, just fanning it out. I put more black. But everything that I touch is going to be a brownish gray. All right, I'm going to take my white and I'm going to start wiggling in between some of these areas. We're just going to wiggle on in there. A little bit more white. Now, we're going to let this rest a little bit. And what I want you to do is take your white brush. You can go ahead and get that paper towel ready now. All right, so I just got 2 little small sheets here. I'm just gonna ball them up together. I'm gonna dunk it in my water. Give it a good squeeze. You should still have little pieces of it that's dry, but then one end that, it's pretty damp. So, but you don't want it sopping wet, but you don't want it dry. All right, so we're just gonna set that to the side. We're gonna take our white brush. So I got some white paint here. I'm gonna move it off to the side. All right, now I am going in for my yellow ochre. I'm gonna take just a touch, so you just wanna touch it. And then we can add more if it's not the right color. So let's see. That looks good. That looks real good. So we want it to almost just look like vanilla. Just a real soft, light off-white. All right, so I'm gonna grab that. I'm scooping it. So scoop it up like you got a spoon in your hand. And go ahead and meet that blue-gray outline we started on. You can go over that tip of that tree, that's fine. And I want you to bring it all down. Any white area that is not below the tree, you can put this color on. Okay? So we're going to leave a little room for this tree here. All right. So we have a vanilla color. I'm going to call it vanilla. It looks like vanilla. This vanilla white going around the perimeter of our trees, and it's meeting our blue-gray. So what I want you to do is take that same brush, grab some white by itself. So just grab like a little twirl of white all by itself. And I want you to put it right on the perimeter of that vanilla white that we just put down. Okay? So we're just gonna, I don't cover up the tree too much anymore. All right? And at this point, I want you to take that same white, your same brush, and I want you to go ahead and fill in this area. So I'm just grabbing more white on my brush, and I'm just adding white to this area. So we're just gonna plop that down. just like that. Okay. And look, there's a little bit over here, so I want you to just put it down at the bottom. All right, so we're gonna go back to our vanilla white and white. And I want you to go and grab, let's see. I am going to find another older brush that has just the bristles just all fanned out. Like it would be a throwaway brush, but I think these are perfect for blending and gradient. So what we're gonna do is take this dry brush and we're gonna start on the side where the blue and the vanilla white meets, and we're just gonna scumble it. That means just rough little motions trying to blend the vanilla white into the blue. Now, it's no clean edges. That's kind of what scumbling is. You're not really gonna have any smooth, defined edges. It's where the paint and the other paint meet each other. So it's when two colors are gonna meet in this dry, rough kind of motion. So, and I'm gonna bring that all the way up to my Christmas tree. Now, we're gonna let our canvas help us create this piece. And if you didn't clean one of your bristle brushes, like I still have my blue and white on my brush, and it's okay to set your brushes down to the side for like this short time, as long as you're not leaving your brushes with the paint on them for hours. You're gonna ruin it. But during about a good hour time frame, you can definitely just set your brush down if you're gonna use that color that's on your brush again. It won't hurt anything. So I'm gonna take that same brush. I'm not gonna dunk it in water, still dry, and I'm going to scumble back against that vanilla white. Okay. So we got a nice, good blend going on here. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my other rough brush that's gonna be used for my whites, and I'm gonna work it a little bit more, just a little bit. Now, I was telling you, we're gonna let the canvas do some work for us. And we're gonna do that by basically this center right here. We're not gonna touch it. This is gonna be our brightest white. So we won't have to add any white to the center of this. But we can work our way down, and I wanna add just a touch more white. So I'm gonna take the tip of my bristles, just touch it, and go ahead and add that. Now we're going to use the outside to work the tree. So the outside is going to give the definition of the tree. So it's still a downward thing. And then we'll come back over here and just scumble around a bit. All right. Okay, so you got your damp paper towel. Let's go ahead and wipe that center, because we want it to blend into the white of the canvas really nicely. Like, we don't want to look like we just stopped painting. So I'm gonna work around it. So just dab in white. And it's white, so it should start disappearing. And then I'm just gonna pull it down around that tree again. Let's see. And if you start getting little pieces of paper towel, just pull it up with the paper towel. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back in for our round brush, and we are going to dip it in our black. You can go ahead and dip it in your water now. All right, so I went ahead and I twirled it on my black. You don't want a heavy clump of paint on it. So just dip it in there and then pull it off to the edge of the plate so it's nice and balanced on your brush. So we're going to go to our small tree here, and we're going to basically do the exact same thing. Pull it down, put a little out. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. All right, now there's a thick black line here. So that's the ground. Now, so you can take that same brush and just make the ground. And you can do the same thing to the other side. So we're going to go from the small tree to the other one. And we're going to go ahead and outline the ground. And you can go in and grab some more black or brown or black and brown, because they're all going to blend together anyhow, and make you a nice little line there and here, and there's this little swoop here. Okay, and put it right on top of the white, and then just scumble it to the edge. Now, I want to go ahead and get my paper towel. I'm going to dampen mine a little bit because it was a bit too dry, but give it a good wring. And I'm going to wipe this a little bit. So just wipe that area if it's too heavy with the black. And we're just going to smear it in some. Now, these two black lines here, we're going to start creating our foreground with it. So we're going to start pulling down those lines. And rubbing it across. And the same thing over here. And rubbing it across. All right. So, y'all see? There's just a little hint of brown right here. Now, we're going to work it. Don't worry. So, what I want to do is I want to go back to our trees. So, go ahead and get your flat brush with your white on it. And go ahead and get your round brush with your black, your brown, and your blue-gray on it, okay? So, you can actually go ahead and dip every single brush now. Give it a wipe. And then go in. We just want to refresh those colors a little bit. So I'm going in. I'm mixing my black and my raw umber. And then I want to add my burnt sienna to this mixture. So we're going to use the burnt sienna here. And we're just going to put it on our palette plate. You can put it right on top of some of that brown, right next to your yellow ochre. It's going to look like that, okay? So I'm going to take my round brush with all the dark colors on it. I'm going to plop it right on in there. I'm going to take my brush with my white on it. Right? And I am going to start bringing out the edge of the tree. So you're just going to work that white into the branches, okay? And then you can start defining the tree more. You can start making quick little strokes. But it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want the idea of a stroke because we have a fan brush that's going to really get our strokes. And what I want you to do is everything that you do to this tree now, go ahead. I take that back. Only your whites. Any white that you use, do it to this tree and this tree. So this one, go ahead and make your little lines. Because this tree is going to disappear into the snow. Just like that. All right. So when you're doing this tree, you can pull some of that white around it. Just pull it out to where it's going to be right on top of that white vanilla. And you can add white lines underneath the branches. All right. So we're going to do the same thing over here. All right. And then kind of go up a little bit. So we're just working these trees. If you lose a line, that's fine. You can add it back. So now we're going to widen the tree. We're just going to widen it with white. Now, we're going to take the raw sienna. And we're going to start, not raw sienna, we're going to do burnt sienna. That's going to be that reddish color, okay? So you're just going to start twirling it like little accent marks throughout the tree. You can bring it all the way up. So what I'm doing, I'm just rocking my brush back and forth. Like it's just like a slight roll. You don't need to roll it all the way. It's just a little gentle half twirl. And we're just touching. I'm going to go ahead and dip the tip in the water, wipe it a little bit on my paper towel, and I'm going to work the bottom. So the bottom of the spruce does come out some. So it's going to flare out here and here, and you can go ahead and start dipping your brush in water, just the tip of it, just to make that paint travel. Because now we want to start defining that the bottom does fan out. All right. I'm going to add a little, if you have your raw umber, go ahead and give it a touch. If you don't, then just keep adding black with your brown. Okay. So my raw umber, it just looks like this. It's like a grayish brown, which literally you can take any brown, black, and a little white, and you can make this color. All right. So we're going to add this just around the little edges. The same move. Just little squigglies almost in a tree. Pull it down. All right. Now, you should have your white brush on hand. Get you some more white paint on it. All right. And then we're just going to start working in between. We're just going to lightly touch. We want to be intentional about leaving those browns out. Now, the key here is to take the white and pull it into the background. You see? So it's like the same steps with like the squigglies. You just want to pull it out. Just pull it out. Pull it down and pull it out. And so when you start getting more to the top, you can start moving that white about a bit. We want to keep this tip here real tall. You can define it. Alright, and then you can do it to the other side. Just as you're working the tree, work the background area of your tree. So just work around it with that white and then bring it in. Bring it back into the tree. And then pull it out some and work around it. You can start blending some of this in a little bit. Soften that blue up. Just like that. Now, let's take some of our white. And I want to add just a touch more black. Just a little touch. So take your dark brush and add a little black to it. Or your gray. We made 2 grays earlier. But grab the charcoal looking one. Alright. And just start going over this small tree. But as you're going over this small tree, I kind of want you to take your paper towel and blend it. Just tap it a little bit to where we're smudging it. We want to smudge this tree. So do it to the other side. I want it a little bit taller. And I'm going to smudge it. Just like so. Alright. And then I'm going to take my white. I'm going to set my black brush down. I'm going to take my white and I am going to start fanning and defining a little bit more on this one. And then I'm just going to lay down a little white here. I'm going to take my damp paper towel and I'm just going to touch it, just press it a little bit. Just a little bit. Alright, you can add a little bit of white around it. Some of that white down there. Alright, so let's get back over here and we're just gonna, you can keep working it. I think mine is in a good place. I'm gonna go over my lines very lightly where you can still see them, but you can just see some of that paint covering it a little bit. It's gonna give it that snowy effect. Okay, now take your white brush, go in for some more white. And we're just going to start dabbing. We're going to dab around here. And dab on the tree. And blend it a little bit more. Just like so. Alright. We're going to do it again over here. And we're just going to add more white on top of this tree. The paint is the brush is still dry, so that's how I'm still able to see all of my dark marks. Because I don't have a lot of white paint on here. I'm wiping all of my white paint off around the tree, and then I'm taking whatever's left and putting it on top of the tree. And it's slowly layering everything, okay? So we have these clumps here. You're going to take your damp paper towel. If you need another one, go ahead and grab it and just give it a good squeeze. And I'm just gonna press. Like I wanna still leave the canvas open in the center. But I am gonna start pulling some of this white paint into this edge here. And it's gonna look like you're barely doing anything, but it's a process of layering and slowly dragging paint from one part of the canvas to the other. All right, and so what we're gonna do next is, let's see, okay. So I want to start adding a little bit of yellow ochre. So you can go back in for your vanilla color. And if you need to make more of it, just take your white, add a touch of yellow ochre to it, pull it off to the side. You can wet your brush just a little bit, but make sure you wipe it on your paper towel. All right. So we're just making a little bit of vanilla. I added a touch more yellow ochre just so I can have a bit more of a golden hue because I want the light to shine through. So I'm just gonna plop about around the tree. I'm gonna put some light here. I'm gonna go up in here in this area. And I'm gonna take my paper towel and I'm gonna wipe. And we're gonna add more white on this area. So just wipe that. That's nice. That's nice. All right. And we're gonna do the same thing just to the outer edge. So I just dipped my brush in my water. I went back in for some white and yellow ochre. So it's not so much the vanilla because I'm really liking the bright golden color. So I'm adding a bit more ochre to it. Okay? So it's just kind of like that. All right. And so I'm going to add it to the outskirts of this tree as well. See, that's bright. So I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to leave it right there for now. I want to clean my brush, and then I want to just white on my paintbrush now. So I'm going to grab my white, and then I'm going to put it right on top of that. All right, and then I'm going to bring some of it down here. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit more white to here. And I'm going to take my damp paper towel. All right. And I am just going to dab. I'm just kind of blending it in. And you can kind of take your nail, your finger, and just kind of guide it a bit more. And you can actually take that paper towel and just start dabbing on top of that second tree. All right. And so I'm going to clean my white brush. Okay. And I'm just going to define these branches just a bit and work inside of there. And I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm going to wipe. So now we're just adding white. We're just adding white. We just want to whiten this up. So we're adding white. And then we're just dabbing with the paper towel. And then dab on top of your tree. Okay. Now we're gonna give that a rest. I think we have about 2 more steps. So what I want you to do is, I'm gonna say 3 more steps. I want you to take your round brush with the black and the brown and the blue gray on it. And I want you to go in for some black and some of your brown. I'm gonna use some of this raw umber here. And then I am also going to use a little bit of that blue gray. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding to the bottom. Now, we just want maybe 2 dabs right around the tree area and then right in this area. We're going to let our damp paper towel do the rest of the work for us. So if you need another paper towel, go ahead and grab it. I'm going to get me some more. There we go. So just go ahead and give it a dunk. Now we're going to do a downward pull. We're going to pull down and then we're going to wipe. So we're going to pull down and then we're going to wipe. Okay? And then we're going to pull down and then we're going to wipe. We just want it's like a light, we want the ground to look like it's covered in snow, but you can still see a little bit of the ground. So I'm going to add a little bit more brown here. I want to add a little bit more my blue gray. Pull that in. I'm adding a bit more brown. I want a little black in there, so I'm going to add some black. Let's see, put some black on top of that. Maybe a little spot right there. All right, damp paper towel. Pull down. And wipe. And pull it out to the edge. Either side of the canvas. And just repeat that process until you find a good balance. If you don't want something, you can wipe it away. Now if you get too much paper towel, you're just going to have to give it a second. See, it looks nice. And don't worry, you can wipe the paper towel off once it starts to dry if it's just too much. So, all right. So I'm going to add a few more. We're going to here. We're going to do here. All right. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to try to make that blend around the tree. All right. So I'm going to add a darker shadow right underneath my larger tree, right in here. I'm going to put a little bit of the burnt sienna on top of it, just like that, and I want to wipe it. And I don't want this line so heavy, so I'm going to wipe it here. Now, we are going to grab our fan brush. So that this brush right here, dip it in your water, give it a wipe on your paper towel, go in for your white. Now try to make sure it's still fanned. Let's see. You still want it fanned, okay? So you can wet it again, because sometimes they'll clump together. Now, this is a little wet, so just dab it slightly on your paper towel, and we're gonna start making those marks. So just touch and lift, touch and lift, touch and lift, touch and lift, and bring it into the white. You wanna bring everything into the white. Touch and lift, touch and lift, touch and lift. Okay? Now at this point, you can really move your brush any kind of way that you want to. So I'm just grabbing more white. I want to make sure my fan is still there. And wet it. All right, that's good. And then I'm going to start adding it to my tree. Now you can't see much, so go in and grab some more white. Get what you need. We want to start making those marks and strokes more visible to start looking like the twigs and the branches. You see? We're going to just kind of lay it on there. And pull it out to the side. You can pull it all the way out to the side if you want. Just try to keep it balanced if that's what you want. Bring it down. I'm going to add a bit more. Still pulling down, but still out. All right. Now I want to add a little bit more white into this area. So I'm going to grab more white. This is just the touch-ups now, y'all. This is just the touch-ups. So we're just going to add that white. We're going to take that fan brush. We're going to add more white to that. Swoop it out. Let that fan really show up at the bottom if you can. Now, I'm going to start blending some of the white into the bottom. Just like that. Just scumbling it about. There's no wrong way to do it. Just plop down some white. Now you can work this with your brush, or you can take your damp paper towel. I'm going to take my damp paper towel. And I'm just going to scumble it about. I'm just going to touch it though. I like these marks. I like these loose, rough marks. I want it to still look like my ground though. All right, so just Alright, I'm just touching up stuff now, y'all. Just scumbling some white wherever I can. Just pure white by itself. Still leaving this little area open. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but I am. I just like that idea of the substrate working with the materials itself, and that's just the canvas. That's just the canvas. All right. Now some of your tree is going to disappear, and that's what we want. All All right, now get this little tiny one though. Make sure those marks are visible. Yeah, just like that. Mm-hmm. You can clean that up. Pull that ground down some. If it's all in the way. And you know, if you want to get a little adventurous, you can pull your palette knife out and grab a big thing of white with your palette knife and just start laying it down just on its side. If that's what you want to do, it gives it a really nice snowy look. There we go. Now it's happening. All right. So, y'all, now we're ready for the fun part. So I want you to take your fan brush or whatever brush that you have, and we're going to make some snow. Now, I'm going to show you how to do it, but I don't know if I'm going to make it in here because I don't want to make a mess. But what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your bristle brushes, or just one of your old raggedy brushes, or your fan brush, and you're going to dip it in water. You're going to dip it in your white paint. You're going to dip it in water. You want it really wet. You're going to take your palette knife. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use a butter knife, a plastic knife, or the opposite end of another paintbrush. But I find that the palette knife does it the best. Now, I usually use my bristle brush, but let me see. I'm going to try to be nice and neat. But you see, we're making snow. Just little driplets of snow. Now, if you want a big heavy snow, your bristle brush is what you want. But I'm not going to go heavy because I don't want to make a mess. So I'm going to grab some white, dip it in my water, and I'm just going to lick that in. But see, I think I want to use my bristle brush, because when you use the fan brush, you might have these little marks here. Let's see. Let me see. And I don't want those stringy marks that the fan brush does. So an awesome way to do this is to lay it flat on your table or on the floor in an area you don't mind getting it a little dirty. Wet your brush, plop it in your white paint, and I love doing this. So just flick it. I'm going to try with another brush. And it's fun to experiment which brush does the best to know. I'm trying it with this flat brush now. Let's see what happens. And that's really what painting is, seeing what is about to happen. See? These are little baby snowflakes. You gotta squint to see it. Alright, I wanna try one more brush. And y'all, we are done. So I am playing around at this point. I'm gonna see what brush makes the best snowfall. So I do think that if you want to have more of a contrast, that you can go back in. See those steps we were doing in the trees? You don't have to stop just because I stopped working on it. You can keep going in with your round brush and your browns and your burnt umber and your burnt sienna, and you can keep on adding in more twigs and shadows. And you can define it more at the bottom. And you can keep going until you're finally satisfied. But those are the steps to do it. You just repeat the steps. You just keep adding more white and then your darks. More white, then your darks until you find a really nice balance like in here. Like this happens when you just play. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just add in and then put the white on top and repeat until you're satisfied. All right, let's see what happens. Well, thanks y'all.